Chaos enveloped Midtown Manhattan on Monday evening at 6:30 p.m. as a gunman walked into 345 Park Avenue. This is right downtown New York City, and apparently decided to take what he sees as justice into his own hands and target the National Football League. Now, we don't know that for sure yet, but we do have some early indications, and yes, they echo the motivations of Luigi Mangione. We're going to get into that right now. Remember to subscribe at undercurrents.tv for the full premium experience of the show. Subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's dive into the news. The scenes in Midtown Manhattan, if you've never been in New York City, that is the part of the city, the heart of the city that you see most in movies. It is the center of everything. So many major corporations, media companies are headquartered right there in Midtown Manhattan, and here you have a major building that we now know is home to the NFL, to Blackstone, being targeted by a gunman 6:30 p.m. Now, I'm not going to use the guy's name. I wish I didn't have to use Luigi Mangione's name, but 27-year-old Las Vegas resident, not from New York. You'll remember that's similar to Luigi Mangione as well. Goes into this skyscraper, kills 4 people, including 36-year-old Diderot Islam, who is a police officer who had a wife at home, I believe a pregnant wife at home, and other innocent people who are caught up in this fire from this gunman. And you have Wesley LePatner, who's a senior executive at Blackstone, Alain Etienne, a security guard, just an absolutely horrific. Cornell graduate Julia Hyman was killed after the shooter actually took to the wrong floor. We know from the New York Post right now. Graduated from Cornell in 2020 and was working as an associate at actually the company that owns the building that the gunman went into. So the question now, because weighing very heavily on everybody who works in Midtown. Many people work in Midtown Manhattan, and definitely on the mind of major corporations and their executives is whether there will be Mangione copycats. People have been wondering that for the better part of a year at this point. And sadly, I think in the case of this particular gunman, it's starting to look like that may be the case. So found in this gunman's wallet is a letter. It's 3 pages, 3-page note that really does raise the question of motive. Here are a couple of lines. We have excerpts from the police as of right now. References Terry Long, says something about, quote, drinking a gallon of antifreeze. Study my brain, please. I'm so sorry. This is where the gunman shot himself in the head. So wanted to be apparently studied for CTE, which is absolutely awful. It's the degenerative brain disease. We learn more and more that repeated, intense head trauma from playing football all your life. Now, this guy's 27. So that's, even some people who just play high school or just play college end up in that situation. This could be the case with this man. He played high school football in Southern California, according to the New York Times. So that may turn out to be the case. But there is a line in this note that very particularly sounds like a Mangione copycat example. It says, quote, please study brain for CTE. I'm sorry. The league knowingly concealed the dangers to our brains to maximize profits. They failed us. Another line says, you can't go against the NFL. They'll squash you. Another says, Terry Long, football gave me CTE and caused me to drink a gallon of antifreeze. So this is a deeply troubled young man. If it turns out that this man had CTE from the innocent all-American experience of playing high school football and was tortured by it until he took what he believed to be justice into his own hands and killed innocent lives, took innocent lives in Midtown Manhattan, terrorized Midtown Manhattan for an evening, and took all of these innocent lives. That is an incredible tragedy. And many men have suffered from the torture of CTE. That's not in any way an excuse, of course, nor is it an excuse. The same case as the slaying of Brian Thompson on the streets of Midtown Manhattan, not very far from here, nor is it an excuse to say the corporate scapegoat is to blame. And that's where, I mean, the copycat problem should be one that is freaking everyone out in these major corporations at the C-suite level and in law enforcement, because the kernel of the argument, it doesn't justify the act, but the kernel of the argument. This is again from the note, quote, "The league knowingly concealed the dangers to our brains to maximize profits. They failed us." Well, let me pull up the Mangione manifesto. It says, "A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is the indecipherable largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but as our life expectancy? No, the reality is these indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it." So apples to apples there, the invocation of profit, maximizing profits. The league knowingly concealed the dangers to our brains to maximize profits. So there you have it. And another corporate scapegoat for an individual's problems, though there may be truth to the argument that in the case of the NFL, they were way too slow on CTE. And in the case of United Health, it's an abusive industry. And there is a profit motive that just sucks the morality out of these questions. And that's why I think this is something that people should be deeply afraid of right now. And I'm not trying to fearmonger here, but institutional trust in this country is incredibly low. And it's right now, the more people are sort of seeing that there are legitimate arguments to be made about wealthy corporations that are maximizing profits and enhancing or increasing suffering along the way, then it obviously becomes more attractive to people. And I'm reading here from a Bloomberg article. "The percentage of Americans who told Gallup that they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in major companies has dropped from 30% in 1999 to 16% this year." This was in 2024, so not that long ago. "The repercussions are serious. Just 40% of people believe between the ages of 18 to 29 had a very or somewhat positive impression of capitalism in 2022, according to the Pew Research Center." Now, that may have you wondering, has Zoran Mamdani, obviously the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City, responded to this? Yes, he did say, "I'm heartbroken to learn of the horrific shooting in Midtown, and I'm holding the victims, their families, and the NYPD officer in critical condition in my thoughts. Grateful for all of our first responders on the ground." Yes, this is the same Zoran Mamdani who said that queer liberation was defunding the police. I believe that was back in 2020, and the New York Post is running the headline, "NYC mayoral frontrunner Zoran Mamdani addresses Midtown mass shooting from Uganda compound." So Mamdani went to Uganda to celebrate his wedding, and that's where the New York Post is reporting Mamdani sent this X post from. And, it's obviously now going to become an issue, and rightfully so, in the mayoral debate. And Mamdani's sort of anti-law enforcement past was always one of his biggest vulnerabilities running citywide. It was actually Eric Adams' law enforcement past is something that helped him originally get elected as mayor. So this now will, so many people just going about their days terrorized in Midtown. If you live in New York City, you probably know people who were in Midtown when it happened. A lot of people probably know people who were in the building. This is going to ripple. So it'll definitely have a political effect. And it'll thrust this conversation about Mangione and corporate abuse further into our conversation again. Just horrific reading about the victims. And it does seem, unfortunately, that, whether or not this young man was inspired by Mangione, we now have, because institutional trust is so low, particularly in corporations, but that also goes across the board, most people are not going to try to take justice, what they see as justice, into their own hands. They're not going to lash out violently. But the bigger that pool of people who have low trust and low confidence in these institutions is, the bigger the pool of people who are legitimately victimized by these institutions, these corporations, these systems, the bigger that pool gets. That means you have more desperate people. And that means the pool is bigger from which people can become radicalized and violent. So this is it obviously is a deep-seated problem in the United States right now. But I think we would be foolish to ignore the signs that we are in the midst of, in the early days of a time of political violence and turmoil, and institutions, the people who are leading these institutions, it is incumbent on them to snap into an awakening, and start listening to their customers, listening to their voters, and trying to present problems rather than distracting, dangling shiny objects over here and over here. People want solutions, and they want solutions so that we don't have to live in fear of this type of violence. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back here with more Undercurrents soon.